The point to make is that Britain didn't really have a leadership role in the world prior to Brexit. It had a voice, and a strong voice, in the EU, but the EU, as we know, is not a very strategic player. It's a strategic player on trade, but not in the broader foreign and security policy space, where France and Britain, and to a certain extent Germany, really dominated the voice. And the very creation of the E3, the European Three, to run the negotiations with Iran, and then sort of tacking the EU onto that arrangement towards the end, is a good example of the fact that in foreign policy, at least, these countries tended to exist even separate from their identity with the EU. So I suppose the point I'd make is that Britain needn't be less powerful after leaving the EU, unless A, it becomes poorer, which in the near term it is likely to do because it's going to cost leaving the EU in the near term. Britain might make up for it later on, but for a good 2 to 3 years, it will be laboring under new frictions in its trading relationship with its main trading partner, and that will create a drag effect on the British economy. And then you throw COVID in as well, it's going to be difficult for Britain to have the resources to play as active a role. But when you look at the great powers around the world, I always say power is relative. The United States is very powerful, but it is also quite divided internally, and depending on how its internal politics play out, can really whipsaw its foreign policy from one type of approach to a very different one. And I'd say the rest of the world has become more suspicious over American leadership rather than less through George W. Bush and Obama and that first Trump term. So the US is not the power that it was. Russia is a spoiler, and it's always been a spoiler, but I don't think of it as powerful beyond being a spoiler. China, the limits of its power have been demonstrated through the global counter-reaction to COVID-19 and the way that China handled its desire not to take the blame for it, if you see what I mean. So as I look around, the EU is powerful in a regulatory sense, but not much more than that. There is probably room for some mid-sized powers that are agile to act as a caucusing group, to rally other groups of countries around them, whether in the G7 or in the G20 or in the IMF or in the UN Security Council. It'd really be a matter of how much desire, effort, resources the UK has to apply to its foreign policy. But if it does, it could become an interesting swing player in a world of great powers, but where those great powers are at each other's throats in many cases, leaving room for people to want the UK to be on somebody's side.